Hello there, welcome to North Archery Club's YouTube channel. My name is Jeremy. This video is the second in the series Archery the Basics and follows on from the first video called Buying Your First Bow Part 1. So in this video, Part 2, we are looking at most of the items on the shopping list. What does the archer actually need to purchase? Also, I want to go into more detail on the choices to be made for the items and how they come together to give the archer a set of equipment matched to their ability and needs. So what does the archer actually need to purchase? A shopping list for Olympic recurve equipment would be something like this. Number 1, ILF riser, the handle. Number 2, ILF limbs. 3 would be a bowstring. 4, arrow rest. 5, a pressure button. 6, a bow sling or finger sling. 7, a recurve sight. 8, a long rod stabilizer. 9, arrows, either ready-made or the components to be assembled. 10 would be a bowstringer. 11, a bow stand. 12, a quiver. 13, finger tab. 14, an arm guard. 15, a brace height gauge and various spares such as nocks and fletchings, etc. 16 would be a bow bag, and 17 an arrow tube or holder. When they start looking for this equipment online is when they realise just how much is available, and frankly they struggle to even start to choose. Often they look for the makes and models that they've used in their training or seen that other members use. Just looking at the riser, for instance, a large archery retailer here in the UK currently stocks over 85 different 25-inch ILF recurve risers. A huge choice with prices between £60 and £1,000. This is where new members need good, balanced advice and guidance. So let's look in a bit more detail at the equipment. So number 1, when they're looking at the riser, this tends to be a part of the bow that is not usually replaced or upgraded that often, if at all. So choosing the riser is often about colour and style and price, perhaps flashing out a bit. They can see the purchases other members have made and get a good idea of what they would like. Things I would point out would be the size of the riser to start with. Based on their draw length, we know they want a certain bow length. For instance, they have a 28-inch draw, so we'd be looking at a 68-inch recurve target bow. I would explain how we put together that size bow. Risers come in different lengths, so for this example, they would need a 25-inch riser. Then to get a 68-inch bow, they will be looking at medium length limbs. The limbs come in various lengths and draw weights. In terms of the make and model of riser, they will need to ensure the riser can handle the draw weight that we expect them to eventually shoot. Some risers are limited in the potential draw weight that can be used with the riser, usually due to their manufacturing process. When we also start to take into account the price of the riser, then we can narrow down the selection. Then we're looking at things like limb bolts, the limb pockets. Is there any limb alignment adjustment? How many stabilizer damper bushings are there? Ideally at least 3 on the front of the riser. The main one in front of the grip, where the long rod or an extender and V-bar may be added. Bushings are also placed at the top and bottom of the front of the riser, where perhaps a top rod dampener may be used later on. These are things that are likely to come into play as the archer develops. Bushings on the back of the riser may also be useful, but not necessary. How many screw-through threads are there on the side of the riser for mounting a pressure button and to use a bolt to secure some wraparound arrow rests? There will be sight mounting and clicker screw threads and usually a clicker extender for future use. The finish of the riser, the colours available, the style, colour and style of grip are all factors that will determine which riser is eventually decided upon. But expensive is no guarantee of performance. This I emphasise to new archers. Also, there is little extra performance from more expensive risers when compared to other areas of archery equipment which can bring some performance results. For example, limbs, arrows, rests, etc. There are perfectly good ILF risers out there for between 80 and £180. I bought a riser that can be purchased for under £80 to see what it was like and to use it for training. It is totally suitable for an archer shooting less than £40 draw weight. Then there are risers for £800. Essentially, it's a personal choice. On to number 2, limbs. When looking at limbs, again, there's a huge choice. The limb length and hence overall bow length will have been assessed when determining the archer's draw length and therefore arrow length. Limbs are an item that may be upgraded or changed going forward, as we need to ensure that the archer does not take on too high a draw weight early on. We spend a lot of time assessing the draw weight the new archer can take. The ILF system, International Limb Fitting, allows for some small adjustment to increase or decrease draw weight, so that gives us some leeway on this. We're trying to ensure that they don't need to buy higher draw weight limbs just a few months after starting, as they develop their shooting ability to handle slightly higher bow weight. We usually get them to a decent bow weight with their first set of limbs. It seems that many new archers begin with low poundage limbs, but soon want to increase their draw weight, especially when they shoot outdoors at the longer distances. This means they have to purchase higher draw weight limbs, another pair of limbs, so extra cost. So picking limb weight takes some judgment, often borrowing a set of limbs from another club member maybe, for the new archer to try. Again, there's a huge variation in price of limbs, but realistically, the £80 to £180 price range here in the UK gives a good choice for beginners. Construction of the limbs can be looked at, foam core rather than wood core, carbon layers, etc. Again, what use will they receive, the cost of them? These are all aspects to be considered. My wife Yvonne and I have both recently purchased relatively inexpensive limbs and been very pleased with their performance. We wish they would have been available years ago when we were heavily involved in competition shooting. We have recommended those limbs to our members and a number use them and are very pleased with them. They cost about £105 and we consider them a steal at that price point. There's no point in spending hundreds of pounds on limbs at this stage. Number 3 on the list, bowstrings. They're relatively straightforward. I would usually suggest a good quality two-tone string, usually 8125 material, and of course the right bow length. Two-tone helps archers see how many twists are in the string quite easily. Good for visually seeing brace height changes due to string length, as they often drop them on the floor, let them unravel, etc. Strings these days are very stable and give excellent performance. We just need to ensure that the correct number of strands are selected and the correct knot fit on the serve-in, whether it be small groove or large groove fit, which is dependent on the nocks on the arrows. Number 4, we're looking at the different types of arrow rests, from the old faithful Super Pro plastic rest to mechanical and magnetic rests. Again, budget and use will need to be looked at. I tend to go with mechanical flip rests as being more robust and adjustable, usually the wraparound style, secured by a bolt and the pressure button, as most risers have double screw threads these days. I fit plastic rests to our training bows as they can highlight issues more easily when training. I do point out that world record scores have been shot in the past with simple plastic rests. Number 5. The use of a pressure button is something that some clubs and coaches see as being adopted later on in the shooting with the new archer. I see it as part of the bow setup from the start and should be purchased and used on the first bow. Again, large number of choices, but as the pressure button is pretty much a set and forget item, in that it's not altered from shoot to shoot, a basic button will do. They often include spares, and you really don't need micro-click adjustment, etc. at this level of shooting. This is an item that will need basic setup when the equipment arrives. Number 6 is bow slings. We fit bow slings to our training bows as standard. Whether the new archer uses a bow sling or a finger sling, it's a personal preference, so either is fine. But it is not an option to go without. It's just whether which style would be used. At 7, deciding on recurve bow sights is difficult these days, in that the sturdy, simple to adjust sight doesn't seem to be out there. Again, a big variety of sights, and they can become expensive quite quickly. We look for a relatively solid sight that won't rattle apart and gives simple but efficient adjustments. The new archer needs to get to grip with the sight adjustment mechanisms. Often there are a number of lock-in screws that seem to come loose at the wrong moment, or need Allen keys to lock and unlock. Certainly I suggest the standard sight pins are replaced, preferably with a large aperture sight pin. This makes best use of our subconscious ability to line up circles within circles for much more efficient sighting. Most new archers think the better, more expensive the sight, the better the results. I point out how accurate barebow archers can be used in the end of their arrows to sight with. It's surprising the number of new archers and existing archers that don't extend their sight bar out fully from the bow, often is only halfway out. I explained to our archers that the longer the sighting access, the better for accuracy and clarity of image. And it also helps when shooting longer distances where the sight bar may have to be brought further into the riser to get the distance. So making sure the sight has a suitable long sight bar is essential. On to number 8. So when we're shooting recurve target bows, the risers are actually designed to take some form of stabilization. That's why there are the bushings in the front and rear of the riser. When initially training a new member, I would not fit a long rod. After a period of shooting, I would fit a long rod stabilizer onto the bow. It helps in a number of ways, and they will use one when they purchase their own equipment. This doesn't apply to barebow archers who have restrictions on fitments to their riser. The type and length of long rod can be explained to the new archer. We have examples of long rods that they can try, which have been made by our member Gary, and they can experience the bow reactions when it's fitted. They will have seen existing members with stabilizer setups, often including some form of damper either on the rods, long rod and side rods, or perhaps a short top rod into the top bushing of a riser. This is why we look for these fittings on the riser, as they will be needed going forward. Arrows as number 9. Topic of arrows can be completely daunting for a new archer. Although there aren't so many types to look at, once we start talking spines and length against bow weight, etc., then they need good guidance. What the spines mean, stiff and weak arrows, what the numbers mean, such as 17/16s, 19/16s, 20/13s, etc. A simple explanation is all that is needed here, but choosing arrow spines does require experience and knowledge. As they will have been using quality arrows when they start and during their training, we will have a starting point. We don't use all carbon arrows, either indoors or outdoors. Carbon splinters can be very difficult to deal with. Finding arrows outdoors can prove troublesome. We shoot on school premises, so must ensure all safety rules are followed, so they are banned in our club. Alloy carbon arrows can be used, but they are not really to be considered for new archers. They don't have the ability to use them effectively, they haven't developed their technique, especially the quality of their release, and they are very expensive. So the arrows will be aluminium. The draw weight of the bow and arrow length will determine the spine, and then it's whether to purchase assembled arrows or the components to make them. Choice of colours of nocks and fletchings often factor in that decision, and then I will assemble them appropriately. We need to make sure the archer obtains the right number of arrows in case of damage and the correct components if being made up. So we've worked our way through a number of items on the shopping list. The items left to discuss are those for the archer's use and also for carrying their gear. So in the last video of this series, part 3, I will pick up on these and discuss the overall costs, together with a brief look at barebow and compound equipment that the archer may be interested in. I hope you found this video helpful and informative. It'd be great if you could hit the like button and perhaps subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. So thanks for watching, and I'll be back with the final section, part 3.